Well, morning there YouTube world. It's Boxing Day here, 2016. Hope you all had a great Christmas yesterday. Bit like mine, it was quite a long job. Lots and lots of grazing, lots of food that's probably too bad for me, and lots of surfing the old alcohol chain. But feel remarkably well this... Bless me, feel remarkably well this morning, so that's pretty good. The reason I just thought I'd put this little short video out is one of the things I said at the beginning was the whole point of me doing this YouTube channel was probably 2 or 3 main things. One of those was recording my journey in knife making, which I started about last January and then found YouTube, I'm a bit late starter in a lot of things. I found YouTube around May and then just gradually got into doing this sort of thing. But I thought, well, that would, it's just, for me, it gives me that record of the journey that I'm going through. And hopefully, like I said, the improvements I'm making. I think secondly, on that particular scale, was also the huge amount of knowledge that's put out there by lots of guys, hard-earned things. And so I wanted to give a little bit of that back. So hopefully a lot of the things I do put out, and, please, I'd like to stress that, compared to a lot of the guys out there, I'm an absolute amateur at knife making. I've just finished my first year of the apprenticeship, so, gives you an idea where I'm at. But, in this year I've done a huge amount of study and reading, practice and things like that. So, and I just wanted to put some of that stuff out there quite simply. So it's not, it's not aimed at, anybody who's, an accomplished knife maker learning anything. But hopefully if somebody wanted to do an odd one or possibly thinking about starting out on this journey, might get some help from that. So although, like I say, a lot of the things probably seem a bit basic, a bit simple, they are, and that's the whole point of them. I try to keep it that way. Because there's a huge amount of knowledge you can go into. You can get a PhD in metallurgy, but do you really need it to make knives? Possibly with some of these guys are actually making their own steel, their own Damascus steel, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, bloody brilliant. I'm not decrying that at all. I'm a bit long in the tooth and a bit old to do that. I'm just hoping I can get to the point where, what I do is good. That's my goal. So that's a couple of things, and the other one is, like I say, I've got a couple of bits out there on the YouTube about the bushcrafting type things I'm doing. So it was just to reiterate that, really, coming to the end of the first year. I've done 2 or 3 of these, I think, where I'm at, and I did the Merry Christmas type of thing. So I hope you did have a Merry Christmas and you're not too hungover or feeling too rough. But here I am on Boxing Day morning. If this seems a little bit disjointed at this particular point, it's because after I'd finished doing the main video, I suddenly had a thought about some of the things that I was going to put out there, and it's some things I've seen other guys say. So I'll quickly jump into this, and that is along some of the lessons that I've learnt. If you wanted to get into knife making for anything other than just yourself over the last year and things I've read. When I first started out, I jumped straight in doing the things that I already knew. I could already use an angle grinder to cut out blanks, grind them off, and things like that. So I got cracking with a load of stuff like that with the little bench grinder I had and the files and things. And obviously later in the year, as I've gone on, I've used the belt grinder to clean things up and get things ready to the point where I'm at now. But obviously when I first started, what I did was I did the things I knew. Not really thinking about anything else. So, I'm doing the sort of knives I know I like, I've tended to use and I wanted to make. But then talking to other people through the year, I sort of started to realise that, well, what my idea of what a knife should be might not be theirs. It might not be what other people want. There's a big thing in the UK, Europe on bushcraft knives. But even those, when you look at those, there's regional variations of what people want and what they want to do with them. So that started to make me think, oh, hang on a minute, I've ground all these blanks out, so, are they the right things, So it's the sort of thing you've got to think about is, what your ideas are and what you want to do. You might want to get more down the combat knife line, more down the bushcraft knife line, down the general hunting line, fishing type of line. And you can have your own ideas about that, and those are the sort of things that will influence what your things look like, rather than just turning out a carbon copy of something else. However, what I would say is you need to do a little bit of research of what's likely to sell in your area. What people do you know? How are you going to market those things? What's likely to actually be wanted or to sell or to move on. And then that will also influence the sort of like things you're making. If you're wanting to do sort of like things more down, down the survivalist line, combat knife, military side, you're going to be looking at a lot more Kydex, G10, mica, things like this. The more the traditional lines, then obviously you're looking down more wood, leather and things. So that's going to influence what you need to do and the sort of things you need to be researching and looking at. If you're wanting to do sort of like special one-off knives, then obviously that's going to be, you're then going to have to be completely open to what people bring to you. You've got to take your thoughts and equations out of that. You can always put your own slant on things, but generally if somebody comes to you and says, I want this length of blade, this shape, this thickness, this grind, this angle, this handle material, then you've got to accept the fact that what you're then doing as a craftsman, if you want, is you're going to give that person what they want. And your side of that comes in the skill that you put into that, the skill, the sweat, the toil and everything, the knowledge that you put into that. But then you might have to take your psyche out of that equation. And that's what I'm getting at here. That's something I'm having to do. From the sort of like things that I like, the knives I like, the things that's got me into this and kept me doing this, all the little tweaks and things I've done over the year, I've got to take that out of that and start to think, well, actually, I now live in New Zealand. What's the market over here? There's a lot less people, so where do you live? If you live in a city, are the chances are the most things that you're going to want to be turning out are EDCs. If you're out in the bush somewhere, is it going to be hunting knives? Do you know a bushcraft knife fraternity who are going to actually use the knives a lot for carving? These things, you're going to have to keep these sort of like things in mind. And then you start to then sort of like look at, well, how are you going to market your product? How are you going to sell the product? How are you going to get the information out there? And bearing in mind, I started doing YouTube videos in May and pretty appalling. Hopefully things are getting better and they're a lot more watchable. But it takes a long time for things to build up. And I've listened to other guys who say, oh, the first year I was out, I had 7 subscribers, and then it's gradually built. So, what I would say is if anybody's thinking about starting this like I am now, get in there, get on with it. I started off really, really low level with my phone and things, and a lot of people, that's all they ever use, but they're probably a bit more technically savvy than I am. But start straight away. Don't do what I did, which is just keep turning out videos, which is as much for my own sort of like knowledge, which I've just explained. But that's obviously a great avenue for getting your work out there. So don't leave it till a year down the line when you're actually doing good work to start telling anybody about it, because it'll take another year for anybody to find it. So those are the sort of things. Start thinking about those things. If you're going to do more, if you're just going to make one for yourself, or the odd ones like I've done over the years, there's always been somebody who'll say, oh, I like that, and you pass it on, or trade it for something or whatever, But if not, if you want to make a bit more of it, start, even from the beginning. The thing I've learnt now a long time in is really you need approach it as a business from day one. So start getting your name out there a little bit. But again, be careful with that, because what you don't want is to suddenly think, oh, this is great, I'm getting order books, and you've got order books for knives that you're not turning out to the best of your ability yet. So again, it's learning to walk before you run. And the last part is then, don't underestimate the amount of time that you need to put in, and that's what the bulk of the main video that hopefully this will slot into is about. And that, is that don't underestimate the amount of time it takes to do anything, especially if, like myself, I'm wanting to do a lot more traditional stuff and I want control over the things that I'm doing. That's the whole point of it to me, is for me to control the whole process. It's not just a business, it's something that I'm wanting to do, I'm wanting to learn, I'm wanting to turn out the best knife I can, not just put together the best knife I can that's been water jetted out by one person. Lots of guys do that, but these guys are, I'm not decrying that, because these guys are actually already selling a lot of knives. So the sheer amount of time it takes to grind and do all that kind of stuff, when they can get them actually done absolutely spot on by water jetting or something like that, if I ever even thought I might get to that stage, I think that's off in the stratosphere somewhere for me. But there are practicalities around what you're doing. Like I'm doing my own stabilising of wood. If your goal in the end is to make one knife a month, it really would never ever be worth you getting into doing your own stabilising. It's just cost is it's far too high, and the amount of time of preparing the wood, drying the wood, getting it properly dried, then putting it into the oven, then stabilising it, and then baking it. you know, if you're going to be doing something like that, it's just completely uncost effective. Just get yourself out. But you know, whether it's cost effective or not, for me, I'm doing it because I want control over everything I do. I want to choose the woods I'm doing, make sure that I've done the stabilising to how I want it doing, and the same thing with the heat treatment and how I grind the blades. I don't want to sell, although I might have my set patterns and I'll keep making those because that gives me something that I can practice and produce and, you know, improve on. You know, I don't stick rigidly to the lines or particular handle measurements, so every one that comes out will be slightly different. Even the blanks I've got that I'm doing now, one's a little bit longer in the blade, a bit shorter, a bit handled, a bit different, and things like that. And I'm quite keen to continue doing that little bit of individuality between the knives. So if somebody comes up, they might pick 3 knives up that are the same and think, oh no, I really like the handle on that, that fits, that's a little bit slim, that's a bit thicker for me, or whatever. You know, and the same thing if anybody ever, if I get to the point where I ever actually get orders coming in, you know, I can say, well, exactly how long do you want the blade, or the handle thickness and things like that. But they're all things to bear in mind, and like I say, I will now move on to the rest of this vid, which is about the sort of like bearing in mind the sort of like amount of time it takes to do this, especially if you're wanting to do, like I say, like I do. So with that, onward. Bearing in mind I am complete amateur at the moment, hoping to turn this into a self-funding hobby when I become good enough to actually be selling the things, and then possibly even maybe even part-time in somewhere down the road. And that means I don't really have a lot of days if I want to to keep moving down that line. I don't have the luxury of saying, right, that's it, you know, end of the working week, 2 or 3 days off. You know, I have to very much keep in my head, this is actually a hobby and it's a goal of mine, and that is to improve my knife making and get better. You know, and fit the other things I try and do around that. I'm hoping to get out into the bush this evening. My son's home from the army, so I'm going to get a night out in the bush. So Bushy and Ben go bush with Dan. But hopefully I'll get that up, and then, you know, I've like I say, I've got myself my learning curve on YouTube. I've got myself a video editor. If anybody is thinking about starting this out, bite the bullet and get a video editor. I've got a very simple, you know, cheapish one compared to, I didn't go for the all singing, all dancing. I've forgotten the name of it now. I'll try and remember to put a link, or, you know, just to say what I've got. And it is really quite simple. There's some little nuances I keep learning. The other day I was trying to put a video together and I kept doubling up on things, and I've learned why, and bits of things like that. So nothing's completely simple unless you're really savvy that way, which I'm not. So even on my, you know, even days off, evenings off after work, I'm still plugging away like a lot of the guys are out there to do this and to learn. You know, I don't have the luxury of saying, right, that's it, 4 or 5 days in the shop or whatever. I'm learning in my spare time, and probably just like a huge amount of you guys who got there in the end. So that's a bit of, you know, thing. So here I am this morning. The first thing I did when I got up was put myself some scales. I've got a half dozen Matai scales that I've cleaned down and got all cleaned and squared and sorted out. So they've gone into here. Probably tomorrow, because I say I wanted to get out tonight, the stabilising gear will come down, they'll get stabilised. In a few minutes I'm going to have to, I've got some blocks ready to get sorted, and as you can see the old heating cabinet's starting to run a bit low of wood, so I've got plenty of scales at the minute, so there's plenty of scales down there that I'm not going to run out for quite a while, but again I'm keeping plugging away at things to learn what I'm doing. Here I've got some knives which are waiting for the holes in the handle. These are a couple like bushy hunters, so they've basically been cleaned down and the bevels put on for a couple of these. Again, very, you know, the amount of effort that's gone in. Here's my little light hunter. That's the little prototype that I'm doing the video on, and there'll be a video about that, actually showing the whole process from the first idea of a concept through to a finished knife. And that's my small, sort of like a smaller, just 4-fingered bushcrafter, something a bit smaller and lighter. They're waiting for some holes putting in them. I have a couple of the neck knives here that I've been doing the higher grinds. I'm not quite happy with them. They're going to get a little bit of work, potentially today if I can crack on. And then this is the other block of blanks that I've already cut out and ground and just cleaned up ready. So I'm doing some more bevel practice on them. So that's sort of work today. So the old bandsaw that'll be coming into use very, very shortly. The old chainsaw's out. I've got a load of wood piled in the front garden that needs cutting up and splitting and putting on the stack for winter, as always. But what I'm hoping is, originally I was planning just to just crack on and just do bevel after bevel after bevel, and it's taken a bit longer. It's been harder than I expected. Surprise, surprise. So, you know, I'm splitting that up a little bit because it's, you know, when you're actually concentrating, you're studying, as soon as you start to get tired, that's when the mistakes are happening. So I've started again putting some other stuff, the other peripheral things that happen in the background of knife making that, you know, you don't probably even, you know, see unless you're doing it, so that I can keep on going and then start putting knives together. So I'm not having to just focus on one thing, which is, you know, quite tiring. So yeah, so this is my day off. This is my bit of the, like I say, my stat day off, and here I am doing all this kind of stuff. And I mean, the reality is, luckily, I'm enjoying it, and I'm doing it because I want to do it. But you know, a whole day, getting a whole day off, is not something I can just waste. There's lots and lots of other things go on through the year. I want to go, you know, outdoors and do other things. So when I do get a day where I'm not going too far, it's an ideal time to do things like get the blanks drying. I should have had them in last night overnight, but I think I had a bit too much of the... but anyway, they're in now, and over the next day or two, they'll all get stabilised and they'll go in the bog, in the drawer. So I'm building up a stock of things like that. And like I say, I can do things like a bit of drilling, and then possibly even just a couple of grinding off a couple of blanks, just maybe do an hour or two, and see how that goes. So yeah, so that's the reality of being a part-timer, I suppose. Anyway, like I said, I hope you had a great Christmas. New Year coming up. Hope you have a great New Year coming up, and I'll catch you on the next one. There's a couple of bits coming out, all in a what did I put? All in a day's work for a knife maker. Part 2 is put together on the video now, so that's going to be coming out. And then some of the other little bits and pieces. I've made the bubble angle checker grinder, a couple of plunge guides. But I'm going to put them out separate along with a couple of other bits, because that was just making the all in a days thing where I've tried to put lots of little segments to give people a bit of an insight into the things that, you know, I'm doing and learning, and the other guys out there do. Probably a lot better than me, but same thing. Just to give you a bit of an idea of that. So that's the whole point of that. And again, it's when I look back on my journey and think, oh God, was I really that bad? You know, did it really take me that long? You know, hopefully it'll give me a bit of inspiration to see that I'm going forward like I'm seeing with my bevels and things like that. So with that, I'll knock off. Have a great New Year if I don't put anything out in the next week, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Awesome. Don't forget to subscribe.